Senator Paterson.
Thank you, Mr President. I'm delighted to have an opportunity to contribute to this very important debate. And before I get to the substance of the government's program and the legislation before us, I want to take the time to respond to two things that Senator Bartlett said in his contribution to this debate. The first I'll deal with very briefly because I'm sure and I hope it was just a throwaway political line designed to appeal to the conspiracy theorists amongst the Greens membership. But Senator Bartlett, while acknowledging that there was some goodwill and some good reasons why people would support a policy like this, also said that he suspected that there was another reason why the government was proposing a policy like this, and it was because of the online comments on news-limited websites. It's a fairly extraordinary thing for a senator in this chamber to suggest that the federal government has a major policy at addressing disadvantage, substance abuse and domestic violence and other problems, and that it's motivated by or inspired by online comments on news websites. I mean, that is just seriously gutter politics, and it requires a much this serious issue requires a much greater and more serious engagement than that. But on to the more substantive issues that Senator Bartlett raised, the philosophical issues he raised. I was noting with interest that in the chair, while Senator Bartlett was speaking, was Senator Leyonhjelm, and I just assume that Senator Leyonhjelm has gone to his office to get a membership form to deliver to Senator Bartlett, because many of the sentiments expressed by Senator Bartlett in his speech were very libertarian in nature. He used phrases like big brother, authoritarian. He said that people are better to have control over their own lives than the government, that people know how to spend their own money better than the government does. These are the kind of things you expect to see at a Liberal Democratic Party pre-selection or branch meeting, not usually from a Green senator. Of course, the challenge would be to see whether Senator Bartlett holds these views consistently and whether he'd apply them to other areas of policy. If Senator Bartlett really does believe that people know how to spend their money better than the government does, why does he and his party advocate higher taxes, taking more money from people so that the government can spend it on their behalf? Why wouldn't he instead argue that the government should cut taxes and return it to people and allow it to spend it in their own best interest, as he says they are better able to do? If he really believed that people are better at controlling their own lives than government is and they should be allowed to run their own lives, then why would he and his party support so many nanny state interventionist initiatives in the public health space, whether it comes to smoking or drinking or eating fatty foods or sugary foods? The Greens party is a consistent source of more ideas to control people's lives more minutely. It seems the only area in
Senator
which—
Paterson, we've reached 11:45. You will be in continuation when debate on this bill resumes.
Government business, orders of the day, social services legislation amendment, Cashless Debit Card Bill 2017, resumption, second reading debate.
Very patient Senator Paterson, who will likely be interrupted for a second time shortly. Senator Paterson.
Thank you, Mr President. To avoid that eventuality, I'm going to be very brief and appreciate the opportunity to sum up this wonderful bill. In short, Mr President, the cashless welfare debit card trial is changing people's lives for the better. It is saving lives. Communities across Australia are crying out for it. They are desperate for it. They have seen its success and they want it to be brought to their own towns and their own communities too. I call on the parliament to very seriously consider, and this chamber in particular, supporting this bill so that the good work that has already happened, the 41% reduction of drinking, the 48% reduction in drug taking, the 48% reduction in gambling that we've seen in the early trial period of this program can be rolled out to other communities, so that we can continue to learn from the successes of this program, so that we can continue to refine it to ensure that it is rolled out successfully in other communities, so that the people, particularly in remote and regional Australia, who are suffering very much from the ills of welfare dependence and the lack of employment, can find a pathway back to dignity, can find a pathway back to control over their own lives. This is how we can help them to do that. We can help them to do that by supporting this bill by allowing these trials to expand, by allowing them to expand particularly into Queensland, in the Bundaberg and Hervey Bay regions, and of course into Western Australia in the Kalgoorlie region. I visited Kalgoorlie for a Senate inquiry very recently, and it was very sad to hear the stories of abuse and neglect and addiction suffered by many people in those communities. This is one very powerful step that we can take to help that community tackle that problem. It is no wonder that so many community leaders are calling on the government to expand the trial to their communities. It is no wonder they are begging us to have it introduced. I asked the Senate to ignore those hysterical contributions to this debate by the Greens earlier, who are opposed in principle to this, not at all just because of the way it's been rolled out or the way it's been implemented. So again, I conclude by saying I hope the Senate seriously considers supporting this very worthy bill so that this program can continue to improve lives around Australia.
Thank you, Senator Paterson.